our esteemed viewers this evening. Welcome to the UNN TV and particularly in the towers at UNN. My name is Dr. Juko as usual to bring you this show and the presenter. Uganda politicians are hogging limelight to see how they play the music, the political music. And the Kabaka's speech left people not knowing what is really going on. The Kabaka was very spot on, and he was very categorical when he said that there is unfairness within the political spheres. And the president also came out on Independence Day and made his maiden speech in which he established that the economy was doing very well. All these are going to be discussed at the tower tonight. Once again, you're welcome to this show. With me in the studios, I have Lawrence Semgoma, who is our forensic analyst, as usual, trying to diagnose or dissect issues that are trending within Uganda. Welcome to the show, Mr. Lawrence.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Juko, for once again inviting me on at the tower on UNN TV. It's always a pleasure being part of a discussion and trying to trying to just push the message farther and wide out to the wider world as to what exactly Uganda is enduring, what it's achieving, and how we can make it a better nation for us and for those to come after us. Thank you so much.
Having you tonight. With me once again in the studio, I have Mr. Kisitu, the teacher, the economist, and an analyst. Mr. Kisitu, welcome to the show once again.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Actually, before I say anything, again, let me thank all our viewers for always sparing some time, putting in some data such that they can listen to us, such that they can view us, they can watch us. And I'm sure they will never regret. We are going to be giving them the best. We shall provide them with what they expect it, to see that we can at least bring a change that most of the people have not seen. And I'm sure it's just a matter of time, but we shall do our best to make sure that we change this. The courtesy of Doctor, everything will be fine. Thank you so much.
Asia is mine, Mr. Kisitu, and I believe you always give the best, as according to the statistics that we get around from our studio viewers. Mr. Lawrence, let me go direct to you, and we look at within 3 minutes. I want you to look at the trending issues in Uganda right now, because there are a lot of things that have moved around within Uganda, and our viewers would like to know what exactly has transpired in Uganda.
Thank you so much, Dr. Juko, once again. If I may just get to that just briefly. I think the biggest trending issue in Uganda this week has been the independence celebrations that were held yesterday. There were lots of issues that the president brought to light. He had a very long, actually not a very long speech, but a very good story to tell in the speech, because the speech was more of a storytelling, taking us through 1,000 years or so of Uganda, which was actually quite insightful to bring certain his views or whatever ideas he has about the country, and then just present them in a speech just like that. It further sheds more light on what he focuses on, what he sees is more important for Ugandans to focus on. Just my takeaway from the speech was just worth creators and then the parasites. So there are people trying to make Uganda better, and then there are people who are just trying to make it worse for, I think, everyone else. Those are two areas which I think are going to be, we're going to focus on mostly in today's show. from the president's speech and in regards to the 59th Ugandan independence celebrations in Uganda. I don't know whether it's a day for most people to celebrate, where everyone has their opinion about that. I think it's a good day to have. As to why we celebrate it, that can be another discussion for another day. And but it is that's what it is. I think most Ugandans who are out there who are patriotic are still very happy that we have at least a day set aside to try to get back to where we started and then see if we're getting better or worse. If you think everything is good, then that's well and good. We don't probably have to do anything. But if you, like many other people, see that there's something missing, that we need more efforts to make the country better, then I guess that's your takeaway from days like this getting set aside for for Ugandans to sit down and reflect upon their journey in life as Ugandans and as global citizens. Other than that, in Uganda this week, I think we also had Buganda celebrate its independence as well, because I think Buganda got its independence a day earlier than Uganda itself. Not so many people know this, but that is actually the other story behind our independence celebrations is that Buganda got its independence first, and then Uganda got its independence after. I don't know why those two dates do exist and coexist alongside each other, one after the other. And just looking at what the Kabaka put out, said in his speech, I think he focused on the challenges that Buganda as a people are facing before independence and after independence. And my biggest takeaway from his speech was that he said that if we can
Lawrence,
have
before you
law-abiding
out of the
citizens.
speech, let's
Mhm.
we're just having highlights. Let me bring in to his highlighting him highlighting on some issues that have trended in Uganda before we dig deep into these issues.
Yeah, thank you so much. To begin with, actually, one thing that makes a lot of news is the sad part of it. To sympathize with all of those ones who have lost their loved ones, I'm sure that makes a lot of sense. To all of those friends of ours, those colleagues of ours, our viewers, we are so much sorry for the catastrophes that we faced in the course of the week. Again, I can't leave that point without talking about the other opposite part of it for those who have actually got good things in the course of the week. I again stand to join you guys to be happy for you. Looking at the trending issues in Uganda, Minister of Education coming up to give a suggestion that let science be taught in local languages. Uganda, science to be taught in Uganda. I remember when we were still in primary, they used to teach us germination. I don't know what they call that in Uganda, but germination to be taught. Germination in Uganda, germination in Lusoga, germination in Chori, germination, other local languages that we have in Uganda. So the minister suggested that, and I think the moderator, we shall have to give that a topic, to give that a day and discuss that, because it is something that is fertile and very good. Then the other is about the issue of curfew in Uganda, leading to the killing of very many people losing their lives. And in the course of this week, we have our brothers and sisters who lost their lives at the beach around Ginger. The police invaded them, and in the way of trying to escape, police in Uganda is not all that friendly. They dived into water, and most of them had to lose their lives. And that is the sad part of it. Trending news are the ones I'm talking about. Then still in Uganda, in the course of the week, the field of sport, I cannot end without talking about the victory of Uganda. Uganda winning Rwanda 1-0. And still today, Uganda gained another victory over Rwanda. And I think in the is it World Cup qualifiers, African World Cup qualifiers, Uganda stands to be the second in the group, Mali being the first with 10 points, Uganda 8 points. Then still we had the head teacher of a given primary school, which has gone out of my head, who has been imprisoned for life. The magistrate imprisoned the gentleman for life for abusing the life of the young children through those acts which are not acceptable, sexual abuse and so on to the young children. Still, the training issues in Uganda, girls continue to get pregnant and consequently losing hopes of them getting back to school. Still, if we have, actually towards this, if we can still find a way to all of the viewers, if we can find a way of how we can come up with some charity work of how we can assist these Ugandans who don't have the hopes of going back to school, because most of them are in villages stranded, nothing to do. And the news in Uganda, we're just talking about this, but the clear program for them is not to be seen. Then still, the Dubai Expo has also made a lot of news in Uganda, and I think and outside there. President Museveni going to Dubai to officiate that, and I think we gained positively. Then the other is about the Prime Minister coming up to defend herself over the allegations that she employed the relatives in office, and she was like, she read she read everything as far as the do's and don'ts in his office are concerned, and she was like, there are those who do not want him to leave. That is why she employs those ones who are the close relatives that she trusts most. Then the visa-free Ugandans now travel to Sudan without being charged any visa fees. Still, that started this week, and Ugandans are so up about that. Remember that sometime back, Uganda waived off the visa fees from the nationals of Sudan entering Uganda, and this week it was effected on part of Uganda that they also go to Sudan or enter Sudan in the way of, as one of the way of fulfilling the requirements of the East African Federation that everyone is yearning for, and we need to pray for that. Then the other is that made news, the assassinating of a terrorist who the police suspected to have been in the plan of killing Ugandans on the burial ceremony of the Deputy Inspector General of Police. That is the name was out of my head. The Deputy IGP, the one who is it Lokech? Yes. The gentleman was killed around Chebando again in the course of this week. That also made of news. Still, Segrinya and Honorable Segrinya and Honorable Alan still remain behind bars. Also, still have that in Uganda. Then, still the Bulungi Bwansi, Kabaka's Lake being cleaned, and the Katikiro of Uganda to actually blaming people who vandalize the Kabaka's Lake, and urged all of us to make sure that we protect it jealously. Then the match between the Parliament of Uganda and the veterans, Uganda Cranes veterans, footballers in Uganda, which ended 5-0 in favor of the veterans. Most of us, we got a chance of seeing those ones whom we had not seen at the time. For example, Obadiah, is it Navamusambu Gwanga? I know moderator may be knowing them. Akim Magumba and so on. They were there, Matthias Kawesa and so on. So the parliament lost. But I recommended this Mohamed Isilo, very good footballer, and I love the way he plays football. Then the independence, of course. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
We shall dig deep. Don't worry. We have a lot of time. We're gonna dig deep into all this. Some of which we have on the list to analyze. What was so training to me was the video that was rolling around concerning about the Prime Minister trying to do a lot of jogging and training, box training. That was very amusing and really amused me and made my week. Although that can be a discussion of another day. Let's go direct into the discussion today. When I look onto my list, I can see that the Kabaka of Uganda had his maiden speech on the Bulungi Wansi Day. what you have to understand is that Buganda received or got her independence first, and then on the 9th, that was the 8th of October, and when it came to the 9th of October, the whole Uganda became independent. However, in many occasions, people don't know that it is usually celebrated as Bulungi Bwansi Day, which makes it quite really complicated for somebody, for a lay person to understand exactly what they are celebrating. However, the speech of the Kabaka was very spot on when it explained exactly what that day is. That is the day when Buganda gained her independence from the British. And in his speech, the Kabaka said, this is what he said. As we celebrate this day, we remember the challenges which Buganda has gone through before independence to date. Many atrocities were committed, including envy and hate during that period, and others are still going on. Although these were intended to erase Buganda, they have led to far-reaching implications that have affected all Ugandans. To heal these wounds and promote unity in Buganda, Uganda as a whole needs good law-abiding leadership and equality, where each region handles its core demands, which is the federal system of governance. He also decried environmental degradation, saying in many cases, it appears as if environmental laws do not apply in Uganda. Those are the words in summary of what the king of Buganda talked about. Let me start with Lawrence. Lawrence, according to what you've heard and what you have read and what you have listened, when you listened to the Kabaka, the way he articulated, he was spot on. And if like being a security analyst and a forensic analyst, you know better the behavior and the tone of the person exhibits what he thinks, what he has inside his head. So the Kabaka was very spot on and was speaking with a lot of kind of vigor. Let's start from there. What's your take from the speech? We don't have your sound, Lawrence.
Okay, I think now you have my sound. Thanks again.
Go ahead.
Thanks again, Nadine, Dr. Joko, for once again having me on the show, and my fellow host, or the panelist, Mr. Elias. Well, what I do take from, or how I view the King's speech on Independence Day is, I think it comes from a concerned, first of all, citizen of the country, because yes, the Kabaka is a citizen of Uganda. And to me, I think it comes up being very, very honest about how he views the states or the affairs that are actually affecting the kingdom, and not just the Buganda kingdom, that is the entire country at large. But again, he focuses on Buganda because, of course, that's the people he leads, and is good at pinning out exactly what hasn't gone right. What hasn't gone right? So many atrocities have been carried out against the people of Buganda. And most of them, I like the way he uses the word, have all been rooted in some kind of envy just envy. Let's just focus on envy at that right there. Is that people out there, or some groups of people out there, have viewed Buganda's position or influence in the country and its political kind of capital as something that should be challenged in a way. And by challenge, for them, they think it's just trying to make or put or beat down Buganda into a submissive state, or a no state, if that is even possible to to achieve in some sort of way. And to me, as a Ugandan and as a Muganda, I feel, yes, I think the Kabaka forwards exactly what I probably also feel. Not even probably, that's actually exactly how I feel about how things or the state of affairs is unfolding in the country. And moving forward to him trying to suggest a few kind of changes that we can make to make Buganda and Uganda a better place or country for country for everyone to live in, is that yes, focuses on the environment, which is of course a very big issue today with the climate change happening, and of course it's one of the points that the UN is driving with sustainable living, and it's like if we could just focus on maybe introducing solar, that would really go a long way in trying to save the environment. Solar, yes, is a renewable energy, so it sort of saves the environment, other than having all these dams, which I don't know whether Ugandans are aware of how many dam projects we have in the country, but there are so many of them, and most of them are actually running on borrowed funds. So at some point, we'll have to pay back these funds. Well, first of all, we are changing the environment, because dams do come with some environmental impact into the places where they are put. And on top of that, you have a big loan that you're going to have to pay back over I don't know how long. So the Kabaka trying to suggest that maybe we could go solar, I think that cuts both ways, in that yes, it is going to save the environment, and yes, of course, it's also going to save us money, because we do not have to borrow that much money. Solar is a little, I think, cheaper to implement than dams. The figures speak for themselves. And I think when I look at when I go further into the Kabaka's speech, he hails the government, because yes, I like the point where the part where he actually thanks the government for sensitizing people about COVID-19. Yes, COVID-19 has been a very big issue trending globally, and I think it has affected everyone. I'm almost sure almost every family has been touched by at least the scourge of that disease. At least if it has not taken a life, it has at least taken the finances to make sure that your loved one stays alive to enjoy life. And I think, yes, he's right about that. The government tried to do all that it could to make sure that the citizens do stay alive and are able to achieve their dreams, their goals, and keep building the nation. So that's a good takeaway from that. And I, I think those are the biggest points that I picked in there. But if I may just focus on his conclusion, where he talks about law-abiding citizenry that is the one to actually save the country and actually heal the wounds that communities in Buganda have suffered, and more so embrace a system that is more focused on regions or communities out there. And I think that by that he was again trying to refer to federal. I think he's right in that if we had the law, and indeed we have a law, but are we abiding by it? Are we following the law? Many times we don't, or many times we skew it to whichever direction that certain forces or people, personalities might want a certain narrative to go. The law has, in many cases, been used. Mhm.
What about envy? It seems like
Yes.
the people like people from the west part of Uganda seem not to understand the objectivity, or seem not to hold the objectivity of the view that Buganda was the first and the nuclear of Uganda. And when you look at what really happened in 1900, that's Buganda which was the nuclear of the whole system, that other states like Bunyoro, Toro, and the rest had to join. And also, people tend to forget that Buganda seems to be the biggest population of all the states in Uganda. And also not forgetting that Buganda is in the center of Uganda, where the capital is found. And they look at it in terms of political dimension, that Buganda seems to be stealing the show, as mentioned, as the saying. Uh, what is your take about that kind of feeling by other members of other states from within Uganda, the way they look at Buganda?
Well, thank you again, Dr. Jericho. I think the envy is quite evident in many people's kind of narrative or rather outlook to how Uganda or Buganda is positioned in Ugandan politics, and even it just being where the capital city is in the first place, and where almost all the big decisions, and where almost a good percentage, or rather most of our commerce, or the majority of our commerce, is actually carried out. So if you come from an area, whether west or even the north, the extreme north of Uganda, I've been privileged or honored to travel to at least most parts of Uganda, and quite honestly, there's a very big contrast between Uganda or Buganda or Kampala as is, and the neighboring, areas that are under Buganda, and the areas that you're going to find maybe closer to the Sudan border, or even closer to the even the Kenyan border, by the way, and even when you head to the west towards Mbarara and those other parts within western Uganda. Chigezi, yes, all those areas. So there's a very, very big contrast between the two. And quite honestly, I wouldn't blame someone for having some kind of envy, because if someone is better than you, if you can't beat them, at least with your, other intellectual prowess, you're going to just have to serve them with your envy. If you have nothing more to compete with, you're going to compete with something worse. That's why some people can't be beaten. They're going to at least be killed, because that's what the competitor, or rather, that's what the other instinct that comes in for a person who is actually in a weaker position. For me, I am not surprised this is there. Yes, please.
Uganda, the law, he says the law will heal Uganda. What do you think he was trying to what narrative was he trying to drive to?
What he meant, him saying that if we had the law-abiding leadership, that means that by all means the leadership we're having right now is not abiding by the law. So he's like, if it was different, then maybe the country, or Buganda's woods would heal, and all the communities and the country at large would heal. And he's so right and spot on that, because yes, what he said also infers to what he doesn't say. And for me, I think that is a carefully chosen line. It's politically correct, if I may use the term. What other people or places or communities or groups of people that are actually envious of Buganda are doing is they're organizing an attack on the Buganda people in a way which is really, really, really smart. They're using the law, of course, to commit some of these atrocities, like taking land, like excluding them from jobs, like firing them from certain jobs again. I mean, if you could look, like when the layoffs happened, I am sure, I remember many people got laid off during the privatization scheme running. And if you could look at it, these were most of the jobs that are occupied by people who are more so in the central region, because of that's where most of these companies were. If you look like a company like the cooperatives, or rather a society like the cooperatives, many of those people were more so in Buganda, because that was the nucleus of cooperatives. But then it spread around to all these other areas. So if you shut down a society like that, or a group like that, it is, of course, the Baganda who are going to suffer most. And indeed, that has been evident in how agriculture has actually gone down and all these other programs that they had. But
that very day, the Katikiro was spot on saying that he was addressing the leader of Buganda Caucus, I think Buganda Caucus, and he said that there is need for people of Uganda, the Buganda people or members of parliament to seriously indulge in a discussion about federal system of governance. And he said that those very people's effort, the Buganda members of parliament, will result into a discussion in parliament to have a federal system of governance be part of the system of governance in Uganda. And also the Kabaka himself was very, very pertinent when he said that the issues of Uganda, for purposes of equity and justice, there is the need to have each part of the country dealing with the issues of their own areas. That was federal in particular. So how do you reconcile that? And do you think the members of parliament can help in, setting up that agenda of discussion in parliament?
Yes, by all means, why not? If you're a member of parliament, what else are you supposed to do? As a member of parliament, you're supposed to speak for for your people and the issues that are affecting them and their needs. And yes, proposing a system of rulership or leadership is not exactly out of scope for them. So if we can go into proposing age limits, term limits, and all this, then why not a system that is going to make it better for everyone? If we want, like currently, we thought, or at least members of parliament thought, that if they extended the current tenure of the president, we're going to have a better, more prosperous Uganda, and then move forward to Vision 2040 and all these other programs that the government has out there. Then why not federal, per se? Why not? If at all the members of parliament, especially the ones in the Buganda caucus, really thought it was, if at all it was even on their agenda, I think they would propose it. I think they've attempted to do it before. I can't recall when they last actually put it on the floor of parliament. But again, this has always been stepped out as being sectarian in a way, because federal has always been sold as a Buganda kind of interest that is only going to benefit Buganda per se, which to an extent people are actually right, being that Buganda is controlling the country in a way. It's where the political capital is, it's where the economic foundation is, and capital for the most part. So all the big decisions are made in the area around Buganda. So it is a question of, if we are to advocate for federal per se, how are we going to balance that? If you look at certain areas that don't have the numbers, and they will never post the economic figures that Buganda posts, how are they going to compete in that space? I think this is what scares most Ugandans who look at federal and think that it's only Buganda that's going to benefit. But again, if you're going to move forward, certain times you have to make hard decisions, and this is going to be a hard one. It's not a simple one, because yes, probably the best time, or probably federal should have been applied before all these developments came up, before Buganda developed as far ahead from other kingdoms than where it is right now. But yes, we missed the chance, and I don't think we actually missed it. I think it was the system we had, because every area actually kind of managed its own affairs. Buganda did not manage Bunyoro or Busoga or Chigezi or all those other places out there. No, they all managed their own affairs. But then when, if I may just borrow the president's word from the president's speech, when the wealth creators, and for me, I don't want to look at the wealth creators as the local artisans and all these other people he was referring to, the cattle keepers. Yes, they're also wealth creators in a way. But if I might just look at the colonialists per se, they were also wealth creators, because yes, they've increased the wealth of the country in a way, probably more than what most of the nationals did when they were managing their affairs.
Thank you very much.
Just looking at that point, I think when the wealth creators or the colonialists came in, they kind of put us getting, take the resources they need, and they wanted to also include us into the whole globalization agenda, which is sort of the reason why we are all scattered all over the world, and we're using all these technologies, and we have actually developed the world in a way to to a stage where it is right now. But getting back to the past the mistakes we did, this is where we are as a country now. Do we, or should we go back to where we came from, or we just want to keep up in a unitary system that we have right now that is proving not to be very helpful or advantageous to every other person? Because I think everyone can agree that the national cake is not equally divided. There's so many backroom talks, and everyone is pointing figures. You're taking more than what I'm taking. Why are these people in this area taking up all these other positions? Why is it that all opportunities are getting here? Why are the scholarships in this other kind of way? Why is everything going down? Why? If there's so many whys and so many questions, then that means the system is actually probably there's a system failure. You need to look into it, you need to diagnose it, and then give it an appropriate resolution. For me, federal, yes, is an option on the table. And if someone can prove that it is not the best system, and there's some statistics to show that federal, where it has operated, it has not given, it has not given us, and it has not really benefited the residents or the citizens of that country, then we can always throw it out and then go with whatever works. But if at the moment we can agree that something is not right, then we need to change. So I think I'll just leave it at that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The direction to almost all countries in Africa and actually the world, they're all driving away from unitary system of governance. And yesterday I happened to have been with some colleague of mine from Ethiopia. She was telling me the same story, that they are in the federal system of government. If they are not in the federal system, they are in a kind of devolutional way. As you look at Kenya, Tanzania are doing the same. And almost all African countries, other than Uganda, possibly, and Rwanda, who are not doing that. So I believe, according to also your research, can you also within 2 minutes express what you think, why other countries are coming away, running away from unitary, going to a devolutional kind of approach, where each state or each people are handling their own issues.
Your colleague is actually 100% right. The unitary system, which is being probably embraced all over Africa, and for most of even the developed world, by the way, I think the unitary system has also been evident in Europe and some parts of Asia and elsewhere again in the world. So it is everywhere, but with certain communities, and then it's going to exclude people, financially, economically, and politically. And if you exclude it from all those three, then yes, lo and behold, I don't think your livelihood is going to be guaranteed. So other system was supposed to actually push us forward. And I like the way they try to put democracy on top, like a cherry on the top, and make it, market it to everyone as a system that actually works. That what, either way, it is the people who actually, are voting all these other rulers in, and that's why we are where we are. So whatever decisions are made, it's the people who are making them. That's always the catch. It's always like the backup plan for all for the unitary governments out there. But when you get down to look at the figures and the statistics and really dig, and at some point again, people have to make that turn, which is usually a very, very, very hard turn to move to a kind of federated or a federal system. Looking at countries like the US, it's a federal system running 100%. And you can see how far they are. They are the biggest economy in the world. You are not going to achieve that by just trying to make everyone subservient, and then you're sort of building a modern day slave state whereby everyone is supposed to work for a certain family or a certain ethnic group. And Africa is sort of disadvantaged in a way. Not exactly disadvantaged. Actually, it's our kind of richness in diversity, whereby we have so many ethnic groups out there. Just looking at a country like Uganda, it's probably smaller than the state I'm living in, or slightly bigger or something like that. But you have more people speaking more languages in just Uganda than you'll ever find in people. It's going to create lots of issues, because how are you going to balance all that? How are you going to communicate in all those 50 languages or so? It's a challenge right there. But there's always a workaround, and I think if like right now, I mean, it's English is the national language, even if they're trying to put in Swahili somehow. I don't think they're going to be successful at that in Uganda, because I think the Ugandans are kind of really not going to take Swahili per se. We've had so many chances, so many opportunities. We've had it as a subject in school. You hardly find any 5 or 10% of the Ugandans speaking that language. It's failing. And that is one of the tools to kind of, it would have been one of the best tools to maintain the unitary system per se in the country. But it is not exactly working, because people are still so enclaved in their own ethnic kind of narratives. The Baganda will stick to their Baganda, the Luganda, the Basoga are going to stick to their Lusoga. You'll be lucky if they can really articulate good English, and maybe they will learn Luganda because they have to do business here. The Karamajong, same thing. If they're doing their Karamajong, the best they're going to do after that is probably learn English. And if it's going to be English, then again, that there is I don't know whether it's supposed to be a challenge or so, but it's an opportunity, because then we have a common language to speak and then articulate our issues. But going back to exactly where you started off this question now, is unitary getting us forward or not? I don't think it is. I don't think it is. All the data shows that it isn't. It was probably necessary to resolve certain conflicts, certain dilemmas that we had. People needed a certain revenge. That's why they would come up with all these organizations that had to kick the other guy out, kick Obote out. We don't need him again. No, Amin shouldn't stay here. We've had that with unitary, and it has not taken us anywhere. And at this point, I think we have an opportunity where we don't need to go that direction. But it looks like it is the option which is left on the table, because all the other options are kind of failing. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's where, some, I don't know whether to call them right-thinking Ugandans or rational Ugandans, are going to take that option. I wouldn't blame them per se. This has failed, or it is failing. So there you have it. Thank you.
The insight all the way from Boston, and has been trying to discuss the Kabaka's speech and what it meant to the people of Buganda and the people of Uganda. Let me bring in this very discussion, let me bring in Mr. Kisitu all the way from Uganda. Mr. Kisitu, you are welcome once again to this show.
Thank you.
Yes, when you've been, I think, hearing what Mr. Lawrence has been saying concerning about Buganda, the Kabaka's speech, and how he was very spot on looking at things that have lagged Buganda in particular and Uganda at large behind that. He talked about envy, he talked about inequality, he talked about corruption, he talked about foreigners that come into our country and grab our land. I want you to dig deep as well in this speech, and then look at those areas that really which seemed to be very pertinent in this to people of Uganda.
Yeah, thank you so much. At one point, when you look at the issues pertaining in Uganda, instead of becoming sad, you laugh at yourself to maintain the mood. Buganda, I don't know. All our viewers understand this. Buganda was a region that existed. Buganda, with its king, Mutesa I, invited the whites who came in Uganda. It is Mutesa's government which gave out the responsibility of controlling Buganda to the whites. and the white, or to the Britain, or to the British. It is Mutesa, as read in our history, who wrote a letter that invited or that called for the coming of the whites in Buganda. And other regions came after the whites had come in Buganda. Buganda, to all our viewers, is known for being so hospitable. Buganda, to all our viewers, when the whites came in, they found a very good administrative system, a very good democratic system, and they all wondered how a group or a society in Africa could be organized to the level at which they found it. You should understand, all of us should pick this, that Buganda, we had our king being the leader of the kingdom, of the area. We had our Katikiro. Katikiro had the ministers, as we hear them, the minister for agriculture, the minister for sports, the minister for and culture, and so on. Buganda had its masaza, the counties, which also had their heads, which we used to call the Owesaza by that time. I don't know whether it still exists, but I know it is there, but it is just pictorial. Still, the Owesaza was assisted by the Wegombora. The sub-counties are the ones that make up the county. The examples of counties that we have in Uganda, we have Maoko, in Uganda we had, or we have currently, Maokota, Butambala, Gomba, Budu, Chagwe, Busiro, Chadondo, Singo, Maju, Buwekula, Bulemezi, Busuju, Koch, among others. We have those ones. But all of those ones had their structures. The sub-county, the county that I've talked about, having the head of it called the Owesaza. The Owesaza, they had the county was divided into sub-counties, which makes it. And those sub-counties, sincerely, they also had their heads. And those heads of the sub-counties were called the Owegombolula. And for very many years, those structures existed. Still, the Gombolola, all of the sub-county, it is made up of the parishes. The parishes, they also had their leaders. The parish is what you locally call the Omuluka. And the local leader of Omuluka, the head of Omuluka, by that time was called Owomuluka. Locally, that is how it was called. And the Muluka, what makes up a Muluka, or what makes up a parish, it is what we call the villages. And every village had its leader, who was commonly known, and the structures were formed from the ground or from the bottom to the top. They could have their meetings and discuss how they could sort issues. We had our own judicial system, which was relatively fair. And Buganda gave the responsibility of, actually after Mutesa one inviting the whites to come in Uganda, to come in Buganda, the whites failed to mention Buganda. They failed, and they called it Uganda. Uganda, it is something in Kiswahili, which the British could call the U in Kiswahili. It is a wu, and that is what brought that is what made Buganda to become Uganda. Therefore, Uganda is Buganda, and Buganda is Uganda. What came first is Buganda. Still, on that, reaching to the side of Buganda getting its independence, Buganda getting its independence. We should remember that negotiations were there in the beginning, but what happened? According to the terms and conditions which were put in, which were brought by the whites, the Council of Buganda by that time did not accept and was not in line with what the British were suggesting. And consequently, what happened? They said that we should meet on another day. And then that day was it the 9th is the independence, so that is when Uganda got independence. Then on the 8th, that is when Buganda got its independence. In the way of not accepting what the British were putting on paper, the Baganda and Buganda said, for us, we are becoming independent. And then they made the budget the budget which was approved by the king without even presenting to the governor, and they started to run their own issues. In the verge of us getting independence, I want all of us to note this. And I request that we should all go back and read the books of history such that we can understand our country if we need to get the best out of this. In the process, Buganda existed and Buganda got its independence first. Then Uganda came after, and that was the next day. But in the process, British was intending to ignore Buganda when giving independence to Uganda. They had their own interests, which we cannot go in depth right now due to the interest of time. Time is not our good ally. Then what proceeded after? Uganda getting its independence with the late Obote being the prime minister, and Mutesa being that is the second, being the president. Just after a year, is bring up the speech talking about how the Buganda suffered. We should all again reflect back. We had the Wafaransa Wangereza was in Buganda. They were fought from here and people lost their lives. Who sorted the issues? I request that we should all go back and understand the history of our Buganda. We had still in Buganda the Kabaka's crisis, or it of 1966. We should also read about the Kabaka's crisis, what brought it, what caused the confusion, and the government actually reached at a point when Buganda is becoming, actually, according to the way how it was being managed, Buganda as a kingdom with its very good administrative structure. The British, with the way how they gave us independence, they never and never provided a piece of the respect, in quotation somewhere, to how Buganda was found before. The question that I'm posing right now, who gave the British the right to control the current Uganda by that time, when Buganda had the king who invited the British? The answer is that Mutesa, the late Mutesa, king of Buganda, Mutesa I, invited the whites in Uganda in the bid of wanting the Buganda people, or the Baganda, or the people of Uganda to acquire the education. And they came in, meaning that it was Mutesa I who invited them. It was Buganda that invited them. And Buganda was the first region in Uganda to invite and recognize the whites due to its hospitable nature. What happened? The question mark is here. What happened on the day of Uganda getting its independence? What are the clauses within the agreement that was signed on that day that they agreed on? Why is it that before Buganda withdrawn from the negotiations, which terms were those that our great grandparents or fathers in Buganda were not in line with, to the level that today everything is in total mess. And we have to do a lot of things to make sure that we correct it. We could make our kingdom become superior like the way it was before. Today, when you talk about Uganda, someone will come out loudly on the televisions, on all medias of communication, telling you that how do you do this, and so on. We have seen this. But these people should go back and read the real history. When you try to look at Kabaka's speech critically very well, somewhere, we should find out the position of Uganda in Uganda. That was something critical, which all of us should look at, even if you are a Muganda or not a Muganda, even if you're coming from other regions. We should look at that phrase critically so well. Buganda, I've talked about it, where it came from, how and where we are right now. Who are those controlling Buganda? Who are those controlling Uganda? Who are those controlling the 18 counties that we have currently? There would have been 10, but we should know that Buyaga and Bugangais were taken back because we had forcefully confiscated or taken them from their owners through the different battles that existed before even my existence. with the help of, I think if you've read the history, Kibuko Mumbare from the Mbare mountain going to fight Bunyoro and so on, and the Munyoro woman who used these tricks and her tricks and Muteso Mumbare was killed. That is Kibuko Mumbare was killed. All that history is in Impigi. That is on the mountain called Mbare, and we should also understand all that history. Today in Uganda, Buganda is not respected. Today in Uganda, Baganda make the largest percentage in Uganda. But where are they? What is happening? Tribalism is on the peak today. Unemployment is on the peak today. What is wrong and what exactly are the people who are controlling us doing? Where are they taking us? Those are questions which don't have answers, but they'll get answers when we happen to wake up and we understand where the mistake came from. To be very straight, the mistake came from the time when Uganda, when the British were giving us independence. They gave independence to the people from whom they never got the rights to control the country. I think I can make this so clearly. Abazungu bajje Uganda nga batwa independence nga bajja okutufuga we bajja okutufuga e Uganda nsaba okutegeeza mwenna kino mukitegeera not to be so much effective. Muteesa yabayita Muteesa the first Kabaka wa Buganda, era oyo mwennyini gwe bajjako obuyinza okukulembera Uganda ne Buganda yamu mu kutuddiza obwetwaze ani gwe baakwasa Damula Jono yaba abeera mu in charge oba yaba controlling eggwanga lino. Obote ekiseera kiri abazungu nga bajja yaliwo, nedda teyaliwo. Omulundi guno Obote yaliwo, tiye yaliwo. Lwaki gwe baakwasa? Causing problems even up to now. After Obote, Obote took after 1 month, 2 months, 6 weeks, and so on. After that, going for a bloody shed in Ruwero, everyone knows that. Up to now, Buganda is still suffering. I think we can see where the problem is coming from. I don't know whether we must go to the courts of law and we try to find out what exactly we should do. And if they are courts of law, not in Uganda, when you look at the different agreements that we are signed, sincerely, are we following those agreements? We should know this, that America was a British protectorate and it got its independence from the Britain. Very many Asian countries were British protectorate. They got their independence from British. Very many African countries, the same trend is that. And still now, to pose again a challenge, we have what we call European Union. In coordination with Kabaka's speech, finding out the position of Uganda in Uganda. Still, when you look at the European Union, British, our colonial master, withdrawn from it. In the way of it, trying to find out its position in Europe, where is it? Why did it withdraw from European Union? Everyone from Europe was free to go to Britain, take up the jobs, take up the resources, take up their land, take up everything. After all those were actually even tribalism, cropping and so on, and everything that you can think about. Then after them looking at all of that, they decided to withdraw. Why did they withdraw? The same problems that Britain faced, they are all that Britain foreseen are the problems that are in Uganda. By Buganda accepting to be part of Uganda, this is the story. Your resources are taken. You're crying over land grabbing. It is you who accepted to join Uganda. But the question is, did Uganda accept? If it accepted, why did it get its independence first? Those are questions without answers. Unemployment cropping up. By Britain joining the European Union, unemployment was going to be at a very high rate than it is at before. Then it became so clever, it decided to withdraw. from the European Union. Still, Buganda, in relation to Kabaka's speech, those are the things that he is trying to make us understand. It's unfortunate that we have got our leaders who have not bothered to take a time to read about the history of Uganda and Buganda. Buganda, Bunyoro, Busoga, Ankole, where did they come from? Indigenously, what was here? Some regions were just brought up here and they were forced onto us by the colonial masters in their way of demarcating. The East Africa, that is East Africa, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, and so on. That is how those things came about. And when you try to go somewhere else, you'll find out that Buganda is challenged. Today, as I conclude, today, when you look at how Buganda, I'm sorry, when you look at how Buganda is being mistreated, the problems are originating from the British, the colonial masters. Thank you so much.
And all the way from Uganda and trying to dig deep into the Kabaka's speech. As we try to dig deeper into other issues, we are going to have a short break. And when we come back, we go direct to the second discussion. Don't go away. Keep on to your screen. Welcome back to the second part of this show as we try to dig deep into issues that are trending within Uganda. With me in the studios, I have Lawrence Semgoma as usual, the analyst, and also I have Mr. Kisitu, who is our usual discussant regarding issues that trend within Uganda. Right now, when you look at the situation that we're having, several opposition political parties merged and launched a new political pressure group in the names of pushing for peaceful transition in the country before 2026. In all these discussions, the coalition named the People's Front for Transition was launched at Just Forum JEMA offices in Kampala and endorsed by FDC, CP, JEMA, DP Bloc, and Social Democratic Party, Younger Democrats, People's Progressive Party, PPP, and Uganda People's Congress, UPC faction led by Peter Warubiri. Other members within the front included the People's Government and several civil society organizations. The coalition was led by Dr. Kizza Besigye as the national chairman, deputized by Lord Mayor Elias Lukwago. At the launch, political party leaders including FDC Patrick Oboy Amriat, Kenny Luchams of CP, Peter Warubiri of UPC, Dr. Mukaku of DP Bloc, Dr. Kizza Besigye on behalf of the People's Government, Saddam Gaira of PPP, Elton John Mabilizi, Sulaiman Chidandala, and others appended signatures to the protocol under the new coalition with the slogan Twetase. Now, when looking at this, trying to look at the issues that were discussed in this situation, would like also to dig deep into what the relevance of this organization. Not only this one, but there are so many others that are coming up, which I believe might be a big problem or a big success within the Ugandan politics. When you look at even other parties like FDC, we saw some occasion yesterday when FDC was also playing a lot, I mean, taking part in kind of activities that rejuvenate their party. Unfortunately, what we saw was that the leading political opposition group, that is NOP, was not active, did not participate in that kind of front, and there are a lot of questions that are coming up asking whether this time the front or this pressure group is going to succeed. So discussing into deeper on this issue, I have Mr. Kisitu Elias, all the way from Uganda, and I have Lawrence. Mr. Kisitu, let's start with you. We all saw what happened. Everybody was very, very anxious. Others are criticizing that Kizza Besigye and the team have come up possibly to challenge the existence of NOP. Others are saying that is a very good front that will be a force to reckon with. What is your take into this kind of narrative which is going on within Uganda?
Yeah, thank you so much, the moderator, for again giving me this opportunity to talk about the new, that is the People's Government rebrands to People's Front for Transition. The questions which we must ask ourselves first. FDC, before, what was it doing? That is, before NUP's existence. Is FDC still so strong like how it used to be? That's a question mark. If the answer is yes, then I would say that we would not have a need for the formation of the new pressure group. But if the answer is that FDC had become weak, or the answer is no, it is not strong as it used to be before, then we could say yes. People, that is People's Front for Transition, or the ready card, like how I can call it ready card, should be other players in this. JEMA. What is JEMA doing? I think we are from the era of Hussein Chanjo, Haji Hussein Chanjo, being in parliament. It got another member that is my brother from Bujiri in parliament again. JEMA from Chisibilike Mayanja contesting for being the president of the Republic of Uganda, and he lost. What is its way out? Then again, you look at those other people, the UID, those who are the DP below. What is their position in the politics of Uganda? Where are they? Have they been so much active of recent? Or they want to find a way? I would say people want to find a way. How is the public viewing all of these ones? I'm actually not forgetting Mr. Chams. Was it of P? The easy part has got out of my head. But the issue is, these people are trying to find out best they can come back on the point. We have another project. Actually, I want to relate these two together. Another presidential aspirant, 20, as it of recent, Mr. Kabuleta, coming up with another, what he called the National Economic Empowerment Dialogue. That is by Kabuleta. Ask yourself, why are these two, the other pressure group, the National Economic Empowerment, coming almost at the same time? What is that is forcing them to come at the same time? We have NOP, which has not even said anything about the new pressure group that is in existence, headed by Dr. Kizza Besigye. Let us look at its structure, headed by Kizza Besigye, who has several times tried to contest for being the president, And we according to the information, Mr. Kizza Besigye losing out, yet had the majority support in Uganda. Even to reaching the parliament, FDC having the biggest position from the opposition, that is the leader of opposition. From if you do Winnie Kiza, FDC, Beta Olochan, FDC, is it Ogenga Latigo, again FDC and all of that, FDC. What did they do? We, after basically leaving FDC as the president of FDC, going to form another, I don't know whether it is a political party or it is what, which they called People's Government. I think the model I've heard about that at one point. People's Government, having its headquarters offices at Katonga along Masaka Road. People's Government, again, Elias Lukwago being the vice to Kizza Besigye. What have they done? What are they doing currently? Now they are coming up to form another pressure group. What do you expect from this pressure group? The people in the pressure group, apart from Kizza Besigye, again, I think Elias Lukwago, but the others, the majority of them were in the go forward of Mr. Amama Mbabazi. What went wrong with go forward? Should I say that most of these people here are political prostitutes? It's just a question which requires an answer. Still, to look at this, any other movement which is not joined by the strongest party on the side of opposition currently, which is no, cannot make any impact in Uganda. And if those other people wanted to be so strong, all of those ones in the People's Front for Transition, the red card, like how they call it, they would go behind someone who is controlling the opposition currently. And therefore, I would not become so much excited when I look at this. Because all of them currently are so weak. And to tell you, to defend this to you, I'm on ground. No one, actually, the people on ground are not even talking about the People's Front for Transition. Like how they are talking about the party that has not joined this. All of them are making a comment that they would have first convinced the other no to join them, then we would have joined them. Most of the people in the People's Front for Transition, they are looked at in the image of betrayers, those that have betrayed Ugandans for so long. And therefore, we don't expect much from this. We don't expect much from this. They have started at a failing point, and at the end, we shall not see anything. Again, there is something somewhere there is some article I read somewhere. The government that wants to keep itself into power, the very big leader of opposition will always come from the same region where the person controlling the government comes from. Who is controlling the government? President Museveni. Where does he come from? The region is known. Who is the head of the People's Front for Transition? Dr. Kizza Besigye. Where does he come from? Everyone knows. And people have that on their mind. And what they would have done right now, they would have gone back to the grassroots to make sure that they could spread the gospel of change in Uganda. But without doing that, we shall not see anything. They want to start all their movements in Kampala. Of course, that is what they would do. But I think right now, they would become more strategic and they go back on ground to make sure that they could talk to people and people are ready to follow the leaders who are so genuine. Still, as I conclude, if they wanted to change, we had people power as a pressure group, which caused impact in Buganda. And I'm sure most people in Buganda and some regions of Busoga and other parts of the country are changed. Then we need to find a way. How can we get another group of strong youth that can change other regions? They are political figures which we are tired, which the world is tired of seeing at the podium. And the moment we present such a figure, it will never be supported. I rest my case and I beg to submit. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kisitu, for the insight. I believe when you look at what is the political atmosphere in Uganda, it seems like everyone is either excited or frustrated. And it seems like there is a very big contestation between the oppositional teams that exist in Uganda. So let me bring in Mr. Semugoma Lawrence. Here we have a situation that seems to be very, very ranting, and people are looking at the rebranding of FDC or People's Government to a new kind of political pressure group as an attempt to dislodge the political the political position of NUP as a party. So I want you to come in and try to give light on those rebranding. As we see NRM is rebranding, we see also FDC rebranding, we are looking at pressure groups rebranding. However, others are adamant to join those organizations, like Senyonyi's NUP said, that there are a lot of contestations coming over, but they cannot just board any bus that comes around. Can we have your discussion into this?
No, thank you very much again, Dr. Jacob, for an opportunity once to contribute. If I may just get into that immediately, rebranding is not always a bad thing, especially in the corporate world. If you have a faded product, a faded service, or a faded figure, branding is one way rebranding is one way to actually raise the energy and keep the momentum going, such that you might achieve your corporate objectives or so. So when you borrow the same kind of thinking and then you apply it in politics, it's more or less the same thing. Opposition leaders rebranding themselves to other colors, other pressure groups, and probably even in some cases other political parties. It's not something new. It has always happened in Ugandan politics and elsewhere in the world. But I think more so in Uganda, I see there seems to be a sense of not being settled or committed to any one force or party, and probably this begs to the point to show that maybe our opposition leaders or rather members are never rooted into those political organizations in which they are allocated or they actually get inducted into. Because if I may just switch you up to switch you into religion, usually when you see someone crossing from one religious denomination to another, then the message was he never got the message in the first one. He or she was baptized into or following in the first place. That usually happens so many times, especially with our Pentecostals who keep hopping from one church to the other. It's not that Catholics or Protestants don't. I think they all do, but more so it happens in the Pentecostals, and they're always free and able to do that. It's less likely to happen amongst the Muslims. They're usually more grounded in faith. But again, it happens there as well. So it happens all over the place. Now, when it comes to politics, why of all times is the opposition doing this almost at the same time? You have the PFT, Dr. Kizza Besigye doing his red card project running out there, and he has tried to bring in all the old timers, Ken Luchamzi from CP. I think they did this. I don't know. I think they did this at the GEMA offices. That at least that's what I read in the news. And then you have the People's Progressive Party. I think that's the one. I think from for Bidandi. And then you also have the Social Democratic Party. I think that's a faction of DP, and I think even DP itself is part of this. Right now, 59 years of independence, and this is it. This is the best play game, I mean, the opposition has right now. Rebrand have so many fronts. I can agree that it is, as a matter of strategy, I think it can be welcome to unseat a really entrenched dictator, in that you need to attack him on many fronts. But if you're attacking on more fronts and then further dividing your gains into smaller and smaller factions, and on fronts that you're pushing the battle to fronts that you might not win, I don't think that's really gonna help you win that battle. So I would want to probably have a discussion or conversation with Dr. Kiza Besigye as to where or how he sees this pressure group taking Uganda per se right now. I followed him all throughout his FDC tenure. He was the strongest candidate in the opposition. It is alleged that he actually won the vote when he contested. And I would want to believe that he did that. But if you're a presidential candidate so far, and then you actually contested and supposedly won, why are you now going back to a pressure, forming just a pressure group? A political party takes you further, closer to the table. It puts you further, closer to the table where you want to be. So why are you now going back to a pressure group? A pressure group is like you've gone back to on your marks. It's where people power was just before elections. Very strong political formidable force, but it had no party. And everyone wondered whether they have direction, they have strategy, they have an agenda, they have a manifesto. And that came in way after. And then you see it was all done very hurriedly. Some mistakes were made. But again, they kept up with the pressure until the presidential elections. They are nominated. They have all their MPs, all these MPs that they paraded and actually won. That's good. So if that is maybe what Dr. Kiza wants to do right now, go back, rebrand, do a people power kind of thing, rendition in a way, and then come back and unleash a political tsunami, as he once used the term, then maybe we welcome such efforts. But I think he's kind of late for that, in that I think if that was to be the case, he should have done it probably before the presidential elections. Right now, after the elections, you have another 4 or 5 years before you're gonna, your party is gonna be seen as effecting any real change. At the moment, there's not so many. The political kind of season has closed, unless you have a few by-elections that might happen, and then I don't know which other thing is going to happen in the political arena. But then that season seems to be closed. Whoever has won has won. Whoever is contesting that the other person didn't win, then they are in their courts of law trying to get justice or a fair chance such that maybe they can run again. If FDC is now targeting by-elections, I mean, former FDC president is now targeting the by-elections, then that can also be a strategy, because it's the same place where Chagulanyi was a few years back. He first, gained his momentum in by-elections, won most, if not all of them, and then when he came up as a candidate, I mean, the world was already ready for him. I'm not sure Besigye or even all these old-timers, CPs, Ken Luchamus and Bidadi's PPP are going to actually have that kind of effect on the Ugandan population, because it's fairly young population. I'm not sure their interests overwhelm with these old-timers. And yes, we can agree that we need more leaders in Ugandan politics, more so to clean it up if at all the terrain is not clean, which I think we all agree that it isn't. But sometimes politics seems to be very dirty. We need more clean players. Are these the cleanest players who are making all these pressure groups? That is something probably you and I to ask yourselves about. further moving down to former presidential candidate Joseph Kabuleta, he also forms his needs pressure group, and for him, at least, is keen to be like, okay, this is focusing on federal. That is also a welcome kind of pressure group. It is also having its own vision. I'm not sure how Kabuleta stood previously, but I think he was an independent. Him forming a pressure group right now, if at all the intention is to turn needs, which is a national, I think, economic economic and empowerment, economic development platform. I think that's what it is. If that's what he wants to use, probably to come up with a party at the end of the day, then at least that would show that he's getting some kind of political growth at the moment, or he's trying to sow seeds that he might reap later. So if needs is to keep expanding at some point, get membership, get traction, get some visibility as a brand, I think that's also a welcome kind of effort in as far as the opposition is concerned. But again, we shall evaluate that as time goes on. I've always asked myself as to why the opposition, they all claim to be fighting the same person, but they can never kind of unite as a single front at any one point. I think there have been so many chances for the opposition, or rather platforms for the opposition to unite, which never usually happens. A party now like the FDC, when I look back, I'm like, they were the strongest party, Reform Agenda, and then federal, FDC eventually. They have their president take up the majority, or rather, there's always a runner-up opposition, runner-up to the president. He always has the majority, in parliament. I think it has been long since DP ever took leader of opposition in government. Then all of a sudden, they get a president, the former president of FDC, who is Major Mugisha Muntu, who eventually abandons the party and then goes and creates another alliance altogether. It really begs the question of what exactly is happening in FDC that doesn't seem to ground its leadership into staying committed to the party that they formed and they've so much relied on to get them through all these races over the years. I mean, 10, 15 years you're in opposition and you're doing well and there's some growth to a certain extent. Yes, we can understand you're actually frustrated because, yes, you keep losing. But again, if you really believed in the idea that you're trying to pitch out there as a party, I think you would really you'd hold steadfast and then just stay grounded, and you're like, yes, maybe this at one point. It is not something that's usually seen in politics, usually in most of this other part of the world. Politicians are not used to crossing over into forming all these pressure groups and so on. And I think it's just because politics is organized a different way. But getting back to Uganda, it just seems to be like there's so many cooks in the kitchen and everyone is just creating his own recipe. So you wonder how that dinner is going to come out for the Ugandans. It is rather frustrating and very agonizing just to observe from just an observation point of view how all these political actors act, and conduct themselves. You would imagine I think the last time we were here, we're discussing about iPod, which was trying to create a platform for them to have a discussion on how to manage affairs. As much as I think even that time Noop didn't show up for iPod. DPU has always been a committed member, and I don't know which other members showed up. That is a good platform where they could have used to have some of this discussion or this conversation into making Uganda, a place that is conducive for all the citizens and all the people in the country. But then most of them didn't take up that platform, and all of a sudden everyone is creating their own thing. And when I look, especially the one I think that interests me most is the one that is having the Rwabwogo project, or the Rwabwogo project. They have a 10-point program, which is kind of a rendition of the 10-point program that the NRM had. They have some very good points that they put up there that they are focusing on economic redemption, free healthcare, hygienic democracy. Very good points. If you look at them, you would be like, okay, I think we can actually consider this as an option to the leadership that we have in the country. But then again, when you look at Rwabwogo as a person, is he coming as an independent, or is going to come under the NRM umbrella? And I think that's it, is going to come under the NRM umbrella. So that is still more of the same thing. So as much as these special groups are coming out, some of them are actually steering the ship the same way the NRM has actually been steering it, which is not a bad thing if at all we're looking at the program right. That can be a right direction for the country. But I'm not sure how far how far these pressure groups are going to take the citizens. They have a lot of work to do, and it takes a lot to develop from a pressure group to a political party that actually has numbers and members who are committed, and they're not going to just move around anyhow, that are going to start winning positions, leadership positions. I like the progress that NUP has done, because just in a space of just less than 5 years or 3 years, they've been able to take up lead of opposition, and more so in Buganda. But again, we all know that NUP wasn't just in Buganda. We saw the videos. We had the stories from across the country that actually NUP was strong across the country. I do not agree with people who say that NUP was just a Buganda thing, which was just in the central. I think people who have actually looked at the information or the data they read can agree that it wasn't just a Buganda thing, as much as it was, presented that way. There were so many people who supported NUP in West Nile, Northern, Eastern, Western, so many people. And probably even Southern Uganda, if there's any part of South, we could consider Southern Uganda. But there seems to be the state of affairs in the country. More pressure groups, they are all hoping to get probably to the same level where NUP is. And it's sort of a position of envy where NUP is right now. And I think it's also starting to feel the pressure it's putting on the big NRM, that, yes, as you're fighting them, they're also trying to occupy that space, because they also want that spot so they can take over, leadership in the country. Those are my thoughts on that.
Yes, Lawrence, before you go away, what is very intriguing is that all these pressure groups don't seem to be having a clear ideology. Like when you look at UFCC has come out clearly that they are bringing federal system of governance on table. But all these seem to be playing just a kind of strategizing and repositioning themselves. And you see, these are the old guards that have been in the system that haven't, done anything much that one can look at evidently. So, I mean, what is your take on, you haven't talked about the strategies of UFCC. When you look at UFCC comes in as a pressure group as well, and as a kind of dimensional, strategy, giving an alternative to what other people are doing in Uganda, this time in the diaspora. Would you please, within 2 minutes also, delve into this?
Yes, thank you so much. And it's good that you mentioned actually the UFCC, which I actually didn't exactly mention when it comes to pressure groups. That is also another upcoming pressure group in the country that is also going to shape politics in a way. And I like the start, which is they've started by educating people about what went right and what went wrong, or what was right and went wrong. And all these series that especially UNN TV is putting out there, trying to build a story and prepare people for the ideology they have, I think that's also a very good strategy per se. Probably better than the one of just having one media press kind of briefing or televised event, and then you're like, yes, today we launched the red card, and then people go back and sleep. Then they go to Twitter and post one bad thing that the government has failed to do, or one sad story after another, and then usually in a few tweets. Usually there's no video for most of them. It's usually tweets and Facebook and all that, and that is it. I think for long we've lacked a force that is sort of as disorganized to say that it's going to start to push an idea starting with a story, a narrative, and then it starts to tell the story piece by piece, nation by nation, place by place, and then trying to get all these stakeholders on board. And the federal system that UFCC is trying to preposition, I think this has been on the table for quite way so long. And the reason why so many times it has failed is that the people we sort of send in to advocate for this, it's usually not a binding agreement or so when we engage into talks. Like there've been talks of, like, even the current regime had talks with Buganda that about federal, and it was promised per se. We've had all those stories on the other UNN shows with all the visitors that have come in. And again, the agreement wasn't honored. I don't know whether it is just because it wasn't written, or it wasn't feasible, or there was a third party or another player that overweighed whatever interest or other position that Buganda or other regions had. And to me, I believe that if we got behind the right pressure group that has the best strategy as Ugandans, we sort of have a chance. Just like the way the current regime was able to, pull the stakeholders it needed to win the battle and the war, and indeed it did. We, as Ugandans, if we feel that we are in a losing position, which seems to be the case, we need to come up with a strategy, or choose our options wisely, and not just follow anyone who just shouts freedom and all these other nice chants that people want to hear. The person should have a clear strategy. Like I remember, I think NRM was more so sold for the 10-point program because they had their 10 points. They were going to resolve or heal all these other wounds. They're going to pay back in blood and otherwise, all these other people who stole from the nation. There was very simple points. I mean, that is exactly what the Rwabwogo project proposers are actually bringing on table. They're also trying to present something in that kind of way. If we have UFCC also present its points as to why we need a federal system, which I think they do, because there have been so many stories that we've had, so many trainings that we've had that indeed justify the whole federal system, and more so even coming from just the people who are in the diaspora, more so in the states, who see how well federal or the federal system has actually played out in shaping how this country has grown, economically, politically, and otherwise. And we would want to have the same back home in Uganda. And UFCC has a very good kind of position, high ground, in that all these players or people who are actually subscribing to these are synonymous to the councils that we had in Kenya and Tanzania when the NRA was in the war, and the Kaira group and the Nkwanga group and all these other rebel fronts that we had. These councils actually were there, and these councils were just for people to subscribe to, give their demands, in that, yes, you people are out there advocating for all, you want to take up power, but then these are our demands as members of the council. And it's not ridiculous that UFCC is in place right now. I think it presents a very good kind of shape or to where Ugandan politics is going to be in the next couple of years. And I wish all Ugandans could look into all these pressure groups and choose wisely which one to go for. I, for one, I think I would still stick with the UFCC and then see how this one goes, and see where Ugandan politics eventually ends up. But at the moment, that's where we are, and Ugandans, we're giving you all the information as is. It's your choice. It's your position to choose where you want to fall. It's not that when you choose the NRM, I would have to look at you badly. It's your position. If at all the data you're looking into, that's what it suggests. then good for you. If you look at around and then Joseph Kabuleta's needs is the one that serves your needs per se, I think it's a good kind of catchphrase, good for you. If you feel that the old timers, the CPs, the Ken Luchamuzis, the Dandi Salis, after whatever they've done and all these, some of them were coming from the back to propose something, a ship that you want aboard, then good for you. But we can agree that yes, we need to be part of a team or a force that is actually going to effect some change that seems to be more organized. To me, at the moment, I'll still give the vote to UFCC until I'm proved otherwise, because I'm seeing how their progress or the progress of UFCC is moving, and I think they have a real chance, and I would want to see how that plays out. So that's where I'm going to leave that, Dr. Juko. So if you may proceed.
Everybody's well convinced of the deep that you have done. And as we go ahead to the discussion, let's have a short break. And when we come back, we shall go direct to the last part of our session. And we shall give also chances to people that have something to contribute or put in, and then they call over and then start putting in their contribution, or they will be sending some messages or voice message onto the number that is the studio number that is running over on our screen. Let me have a short break for now. Don't go away.
Time takes a toll on everyone, they say. Time is merciless, it won't wait for us to change. Time, I am stressing out, I can't figure out what to say. Oh, time, just give us time. Time, looking back on pictures, and I find it hard to see you and myself in places where we used.
Welcome back once again to the last part of our show. My name is Dr. Juko, as usual, trying to diagnose with my colleagues some issues that have been trending within Uganda. With me once again in the studio, I have Lawrence Semugoma. I have also Mr. Kisitu all the way from Uganda. Our viewers, we are trying to look at the last part of our discussion, that is the presidential Museveni's speech to the independence. And here, the president, while speaking at the celebration to mark the 59th independent anniversary at Kololo Ceremonial Grounds in Kampala, said that the country has realized tremendous economic growth, that his government is determined to maintain and propel through programs such as the Myoga and the parish development model that have been institutionalized to alleviate poverty. So he said further that celebrating our 59th Independence Day as a secure of our future through national mindset change. He also added that protecting life and property of the people would be his first priority. And he said that you cannot transform a society without wealth creation. Let everybody embrace wealth creation and the principles that support it. This is a kind of talk that I didn't expect the president to make at this time, because there's so many issues that really cut across. I wonder whether one of you has really realized that there was I think out of 100 people, it was only 30% that expected the president to speak on such issues, especially in independence. Let's dig deep into this discussion and see what the president talked about. He talked about wealth creation. And when you look at those, I was something like 2 weeks ago, I was discussing with one of the elders about the independence time. And he was telling me that Uganda can never go back to the time we got independence, because those times people were having sources of income. Everyone would grow crops like coffee, cotton, and the rest, and they would, use that money to buy other stuff. Right now, we have a great number of people that cannot even manage to survive or to know what they will survive on the following day. When you look at the situation we have today, compared to that time when we got independence, that 59 years ago, according to analysts, it seems that the situation has gone worse. All through those days of Obote, Idi Amin, the UNLF, and the president, 36 years of President Museveni, we find out that a lot of things have gone in disarray. So let's go deep in this discussion and try to look at what is that the recent regime or the current regime can be proud of, which was not in the past regime, and what has gone into disarray. Let's start with Mr. Kisitu in this regard. Mr. Kisitu, when you seem to be having very good history of the past, when you told us what really happened at the independence time, we need also to dig deep into the comparison between what happened prior or immediate after independence, and the days that went through all the years that preceded the independence, and the 36 years of NRM in government.
Thank you so much, the moderator. To begin with, I would say, did Uganda get independence sincerely? Are we celebrating independence? Is that the way how independence should be celebrated? All of those are questions that need answers. When you look at when we got our independence in 1962, the economy of Uganda was very good, per se. It was so good. And people, the cash crops by that time were earning enough, all Ugandans. Our grandparents had enough. Everything by that time, people owned their land. Do they still own their land today? The answer is no. Did they own land before? Yes, they owned it. That is before independence. When you look at the healthy part of it, before, what was there? Was it better than this of recent? Then the viewers could give us the answers. When you talk, the president talks about the economic growth of Uganda improving. The question is, what is economic growth? Economically, economic growth is the qualitative increase in the volume of goods and services which are produced in an economy in a given period of time. When you look at the GDP per head in Uganda, sincerely, do we have economic growth sincerely? Let us go ahead and we analyze these issues critically well through the statements like we examine economic growth, we assess economic growth. When you look at the per capita income in Uganda, who are those that have got the money? Who are those that have got the productive ventures? Who are those that control much of the resources in Uganda? Then you look at the indigenous Ugandan, the local Ugandan. Where are they? Are they in a position of educating their children in quality schools? When you're looking at economic growth, we even look at the quality of education that you receive and where you get the education from. In the past, before independence, the child would get education where he feels like getting it from. Today, there is a lot of segregation in as far as education is concerned. The poor child will never be educated in a first-class school and will remain like that. If you still tell us that we are experiencing economic growth, then I wonder. Engaging in production, who are those engaging in production? Myoga, wealth creation. If we still have people summoned by parliament to answer how they spent the money which was made to develop the local Ugandan, which is always misused, then you cannot come up and make a public speech. Sincerely, we are experiencing this. When the resources are in the hands of a few individuals, which everyone knows. Sincerely, we are at a verge of even crying, shedding tears because of the sorry state of all the Ugandans now. Singa mukadde wange yafa avayo essaawa najja kati mu ggwanga Uganda. Sincerely, this great grandparent would say, I'm totally on in a country where I didn't stay before because the things are in total mess. Telling us that is giving the priority to protecting people. My dear Ugandans, protecting yourself is courtesy of you. No one is going to protect you. Instead of protecting you, you're just going to lose your life. And very many of our brothers and sisters have lost their lives. We have them in our memories. And if we start to mention those ones who have lost their lives as a result of the armed forces of the country, the innocent Ugandans, then you wonder who is being protected. And etc. and etc. Still to look at Uganda and in relation to the president's speech, to start from the first paragraph, COVID-19, that we should all be very much serious while traveling to other countries. Because in his convoy, 3 people came back with the COVID-19. We are traveling from Uganda to look for a living, which we have failed to get in Uganda. Very many people are leaving Uganda. They are becoming free slaves currently. And therefore, I don't see why we should jubilate. The slaves I'm called, the ones I'm defining as free slaves, those ones who go to other countries, willingly they go, leaving Uganda due to the push factors which exist in the country. Then we are saying, are we independent sincerely? Can we jubilate that Uganda is independent? The decision is that Uganda, we first have to consult our bosses. Uganda being in East Africa, what does the European Union say? Open schools, the pressure is too much from the European Union. Are we independent sincerely? Please, we should follow the ABCD rules. In as far as the other organization is concerned, we can't make even our independent decisions. Then are we independent? Those are questions that we should ask ourselves. Currently, when you look at a normal Ugandan who is suffering in relation to the government of Uganda, the debts that we have, the national debt, we cannot sustain ourselves. We survive on debts. Someone else, someone gives you a debt with the strings attached. Are you independent? We should look at that critically well. Where are we? Where do we belong? Let us position ourselves correctly. Let us stop bragging that Uganda has its independence. Yet in actual sense, we don't have any independence. To pose a challenge, we've seen countries fighting for their independence. We have the American War of Independence of 18, or was it 16 something? 1677. We have other countries, Asian countries, they also have their wars of independence. When you look at African countries, some countries fought their wars of independence, others had rebellions. Kenya had wars of independence. Tanzania had wars of independence. Ethiopia, not Ethiopia, but other countries had their wars of independence. In Uganda, do we have any war of independence that we fought for independence and therefore we got it? Oh, what happened? We should critically look at that before we come up to celebrate independence. When you look at the leaders in Uganda, sincerely, if you're independent, do you have, apart from a few areas here where you have the right to vote for a member of parliament, but somewhere in Uganda, a member of parliament had even to pay the contestant, the opponent, such that you could pass into parliament independently without having any opponent. It's on record, it is known. We independent sincerely. Do we have our rights to decide of who to vote and whom not to vote? When you look at the issue of democracy in the country, sincerely, does democracy exist? As we are saying that we are independent, and therefore the president came up with a very good speech that the economy is growing and protecting people, people are still losing their lives. And reports are not yet presented. There are very many people, up to now, we are still demanding for their reports. How did they die? What caused their death? People are skeptical, are not producing the reports, are not telling us what exactly caused the death of such people. Then are we independent sincerely? Are we saying that sincerely Ugandans, we are okay? Before independence, to all our viewers, let me tell you this. Uganda had its regions which are clearly known. Regions controlling their resources. Buganda region, Busoga region, Northern region, and other regions. They were controlling themselves. They were controlling their resources. They were controlling their land. People had the regions had their judicial systems controlling them. All of those perished. The moment we got independence, things changed around. That is why the moderator at the beginning said that, was talking to one elder in the course of this week. And the elder told him that Uganda will never go back at a time when we were still in the British protectorate and before. The currency of Uganda has lost value. Currency of Uganda, if you have 1 million shillings in your pocket today in Uganda, what can it really do? 1 million, what can it do? But before, I was given a story, and I heard a story that, is it 5 shillings could do a lot of things. 5 shillings, 1, 2, 3, 4, siringi tano, zigula ekibanja, nowasa omukazi, nozimba ennyumba, no siringi tano. Sincerely today, what can 1 million do?
Mr. Kisitu, for your information, I remember in my vacation, 1986, senior for vacation, I got a teaching job, and I was being paid, I think, $60 as my salary. And I was using that money to buy a lot of stuff. 60 shillings.
60 shillings.
Yes.
The syringe kaga today currently, if you're moving around the street, no sanga akata no ka good day. You even say panama you you even run away, don't pick it. The currency has a highly lost value. Sincerely, are we independent? Do we have independence? The issue is Uganda, we have to do a lot of things. And the only way to go, let every region control itself. That's the only way to go. Resources in Buganda owned by the people found in Buganda, land in Buganda owned by Uganda. People staying in Ankole, if you decide to migrate to Ankole, you become a member of that side, control the resources by that side. Without doing that, production will never be there. If I could again pose a challenge, regions in the Buganda region, what we produce now currently, are we producing coffee? No. Are we producing the matoke, bananas? No. What are we producing in Uganda sincerely today? Before Uganda getting its independence, Buganda was known to have a lot of cattle. Buganda here, a lot of cattle. Today, it is they are somewhere else. Most of the resources were taken by other people who are those owning the resources, sincerely. So I could say that we still have a lot of things to do. Uganda is not yet independent. The leaders, those who understand how things should go, they know what the problem is. And therefore, that is why even the Kabaka of Uganda came up to express his satisfaction in his speech as he was addressing us on Bulungi Bwansi Day. We should pick something. If you get Kabarega over Bunyoro, visit Kabarega by the time, those leaders, if they could also come up. The problem is that most of them have been infiltrated by the small coins that are always given by the people who even get the money from our resources. Sincerely, Ngamaliliza Sebo, our moderator of the day, of today, I would again pose this: who is behind the land grabbing in Uganda and Buganda in particular? Who is behind that? That is a very big question with a very big question mark, which needs answers. Then the other, abantu emugoba ku ttaka mu Buganda, where do you want them to go? Yebani boyagala okuleta in Buganda on their land. People without clear origin if Uganda is shall never be independent, how we shall continue Bulaya njagala bategeeza twagikuziza ng'abasambi b'omupiira aba Uganda abakaddiwe dedda basaba ne parliament ye Uganda naye dda baselebratinganga batyo. The answer is that no. And I happen to meet someone, a young man, is independent. I'm doing my own things. Sincerely, Uganda, wake up. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the deep insight that you are giving, and really appreciate. We appreciate all your effort and the time that you give. Let me bring in Lawrence over this. Lawrence, Mr. Kisitu seems to have brought a very interesting kind of, and actually the tone has changed. Trying to when he was talking about the land and okay, let's dig deep again into those issues that really happened. I mean, right from the inception of independence up to possibly the beginning of Museveni era, and if you compare that time and the Museveni era, is really we really having the independence that we talk about.
All right. Thank you so much, Nadine, for once an opportunity to participate in the discussion. I really applaud my brother Elias for all those very emotional points he has made, and more so concerns he's presented that perhaps many Ugandans, not just him, share in as far as viewing our independence is concerned. There's so many issues in this, especially just dwelling on the presentation that the president gave, or rather the speech that he gave in during Independence Day, Independence celebrations. If I may just begin by just looking at what he brings out as what has improved, which is our, I think, GDP. Well, if I may just inform Ugandans, the GDP has always been growing, even before the current regime took office, all the way from the I think the 60s or 50s, when actually they started to measure our GDP. It has actually been growing in a way, going up. Of course, it was a little slower in the 60s, and then we regressed around the late 70s or so. And you know why that happened? It's because we had kicked out most of the economic actors who are the Asians who are driving our economy at the moment. So that slump, I think, was only expected before the Ugandans who took over could actually master the economy and then, put it on an upward trajectory, which indeed happened when it came to the 80s. I think about 81 or so, the economy started going up and up and up. But again, that doesn't mean that I like the way the government presents it to seem like ever since it took power, the economy, the GDP has just been going up and up. It hasn't exactly. There have been some downward spirals, actually deeper trenches than the ones that we experienced in the late 70s. If you look at just before 92, the GDP was just going down and down and down. GDP 92, that is I think what we have on the screen is GDP for the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, we can agree that it has actually been growing by phenomenally to proportions that you just can't believe. And what interests me is that for the last 3 years, it's just been growing exponentially by a factor of 3 billion or so every other year. But again, our GDP is about just 37 billion at the moment or so. And the president promises that by the end of this year or next year, it's going to be, I think, $40 billion. At the moment. These are very good statistics when you look at them, and then you're like, of course, what exactly is driving the GDP to go as high as it is? And GDP, for those who don't know, it's just purely the amount of, or the total number of goods and services that are produced in the country. So if you added each and every Ugandan within the country and probably abroad, that is how much we are all worth. Now, if you look at those and then you compare those to like the richest men, I think you all had the case of Facebook shutting down for just a mere 6 hours this week, earlier on this week. Just a 6-hour shutdown of Facebook wiped about $6 billion from the top billionaires, that is Zuckerberg's, wealth portfolio, and it pushed him just one position behind of Gates. And more to that, it wiped a good number of billions that are more than the GDP that our entire country is. Actually, the money lost in the stock value of Facebook just during the 6 hours it was shut down is equivalent to approximately 4-point-something times our GDP, which is phenomenal. Now you can see these are corporations and they're bigger than our nations, and we're here celebrating an independence. If corporations are beating us, but again, this is not just a case of Uganda, it's all over the world. Corporations are now stronger, bigger, and more profitable than nations. And I guess that's why probably the colonialists focused all their attention to developing companies or corporations to get the wealth they needed, other than focusing on nations. Nations can always be there. They'll be used to do the small work. They just be, providing labor and all that. But otherwise, if you're looking for real money to make it investor, you're going to focus on the corporations. Now, if I may just drive your attention just to one event that took place this week, which was the Dubai Expo 2020. I think many of you saw what I don't want to call, let's just call it for what it was. I think we all felt pretty ashamed and embarrassed at the presentation we made at the Dubai Expo, where we had, just milk and coffee and a lot of pictures of the wildlife and gorillas and then trees, and then we are like, no, for us, you people, we're just a sanctuary. We're going to just present to you nature as is or worse, as much as the rest of the developed world is looking at other, avenues to make money. I saw what the UK was into. I think UK was demonstrating, or rather looking for investments into AI. For us, we're just looking for people to just come and look at our wildlife, which is okay because tourism is also good, and people maybe after they've been into the hustles and bustles of the modern day cities elsewhere, they need a place to go and get back to nature. Uganda, that's, I think, was our focus. But if I may just drive your attention towards just what the Middle East contributes to our GDP. The Middle East, I was also intrigued just to find this out lately, that we've actually been doing a lot of business or exports to the Middle East, and at the moment, this is exactly what we have on the screen, shows you how much contribution or exports Uganda has been taking to the Middle East. Looking at the last year or so, we have close to $2 billion that we've gotten from the Middle East. $2 billion. That's quite a very big figure. But then what created that change? Well, while most of the Ugandans, and indeed this is why I like people who dwell into the whole idea or the word diversion. I think it was a diversion, putting up Lato and all these other things they put down, coffee and all that. Not to say that we do not export those things or we don't want to export that, or maybe we put that presentation out there at the expo to show where we want to, what areas we want to focus there, the foreign domestic investment. It is quite clear that actually we're getting our money from elsewhere. We're getting our money elsewhere. From Dubai, from the Middle East, we're exporting more gold, precious stones, coins, and all other things. That is accounting for close to 1.8 billion. So out of the close to 2 billion that we're getting from the Middle East, almost 90 something percent, 95+% is from gold. Now, if you want to tell me, and indeed this is also contributing to the GDP of the country, does that accurately present a fair picture of where Ugandans are? Or when you look at gold and then divide it, how many people are actually earning from gold? How many people anyway are employed in the gold mining industry, if I may ask? But there it is, you have over 1.8 billion. Then going down, you're exporting also fuels, distillation products. You have fisheries accounting for I think a 6 billion. When we got to coffee and I think some of the things that were put up on the display, they were down. The exports are down to about $1 million, or something less than $5 million per se. That is where it is. So just looking at focusing just on the Middle East, I'm not going to delve on get into other areas of the world where we have all these trading partnerships or deals or investments. You can see how much growth we're getting from there. So just looking at that number that we have, the 1.8 billion that, actually the 2+ billion that we're getting. So, by the way, the Middle East business portfolio is over $800 billion globally. So that's how much they're gaining from elsewhere. And if you look at the Middle East per se, when you cross Dubai and all those other neighboring territories, that is pretty much it. But you can see how much money or investments these companies or these countries are actually involved in. And for us to just go and then out of the 800, we're just to siphon 2 billion and then come back and celebrate. Well, yes, we have to celebrate. That is something, in our coffers. It's helping us with our balance of payments. But that is still too little. We can do more. And I think our participation in the expo was evident of that we were looking for trading partners. I think by the time the president went, this expo actually goes on for 6 months or so, but just because the president made an appearance, that's why it made headlines. People didn't know this was happening. People, countries have been camping there for months and they're all looking for trading, for investment partners. We were, I think there was a news headline that was showing that we had gotten some, I think 600 or something billion, $1 million one sort of concessions or rather intentions, letters of intent to invest into the country. By the time what I looked at when I looked at the Business Insider, the national news, I think we had about $50 million in a biotech company, one for investing, wishing to invest into HIV and malaria diagnostic technology. And then we had another manufacturing company conglomerate, which had also invested $50 million. But then to top it all up, I think our biggest gain was a UAE-based company had promised, had given us a letter of intent. By the way, this is not a finalized agreement, but they have a letter of intent to invest at least $500 million, which is $500 million into renewable energies to generate electricity, provide smart energy storage and all that, which we so badly need because yes, we've been focusing on hydro and dams, which are very, very, very expensive. But looking into solar and renewable energies, I think that's a good place to pivot their investment. And I think solar would go far in making our country more sustainable and all that. Now, from a business outlook, that is how I'm looking at Uganda per se, or our position per se. Are we getting better? I think yes, we are. You can see the GDP is growing, but again, so is our debt, by the way, just before I forget. Looking at the debt to GDP ratio, you can see it is also going up and up and up. And it is actually concerning that it is this high. We need to know that the debt is money we do not have. This is money we're borrowing to run our budget. So we don't have this money, but then we're borrowing it such that we can be able to run our entire budget. Yes, we're right now at about I think we've reached almost we're 48. We're at I think 48 billion. Is it? Yes, it is. Yes, at the moment we're about 2021. We're about 48.8% of our debt into the debt to GDP ratio. That means that of the money we're using to run the country, half of it we don't have, or rather half of it is actually in loans that we have to pay, loans that attract a very big interest, and we're spending a very good percentage of our budget actually at times just paying the interest. We don't even clear the loan, we just pay the interest. And that has happened over time, whereby you hear the finance minister coming up and is like, this year we can actually only pay the interest. That means the debt is unchanged and it's accumulating. So it puts us in a very, very, very precarious position, which is not desirable. And looking at this and celebrating independence doesn't really give most Ugandans so much confidence that we have any economic gains. If I may, I guess just looking at the economics, it means that we're 50 or 48% now into slavery. So 50% of our rights we do not have economically. We might claim that we are free to speak, to talk, all these other social freedoms that we express, but economically, I think we can see that we're getting behind. But if I may just push this a little further, it doesn't mean that the developed world, most of the US, Japan, and all these countries, even the UK, that they do not have any debt. Yes, I think every country has a debt, a national debt per se. I think in the US, it's probably even higher than the one in Uganda. But the difference is that US is a bigger economic powerhouse. They still make up that money and they are trying to make up some payments on that debt. Uganda, well, lo and behold, maybe if we focused on, I don't know, more gold, like it happened when we got that leap for the exports that we have in the Middle East, we might have a chance. I'll just leave my conversation, or rather my submission, at economics right there. And as far as I am, as far as the data speaks, I don't think we're 100%, free. But maybe that is the tough walk to freedom. That's what it is.
Lawrence, before you go away, Lucy, one of our viewers, she's called Rookie. She's asking, how can we relate the GDP into the pockets of an ordinary Ugandan?
Wow, thank you very much, Lucy, for that question. And I think this is always a confusing point for most ordinary citizens. Lucy brings out a good point. When you keep talking GDP, most Ugandans don't see how it relates to them. But indeed, it does in one way or the other. If you look at the GDP figures, just look at how much you're worth, then compare yourself, or in the sector you're actually participating in, and then see its contribution to the nation. Where are you employed? Are you in the service industry? Are you in construction? How much are you getting or contributing, or rather, how much do you earn per se for your goods, or rather your labor in that regard? Now you can use that to scale it down to you just need to scale that number down to you personally. You need to personalize it. Yeah. So it's not just a figure that is up there that it has no concern, it is of less or no concern to you. It is the only way they're going to measure. Otherwise, how are we going to ever measure whether we're getting any better or anywhere? And how are we going to compare ourselves, our performance to any other nation? So with a high GDP, or rather with the GDP growing, that means the country is growing. So if it is, are you growing? If they say from, I think it was, let me just pull this up real quick. If we look at probably what happened in the Middle East, that from maybe 2018, we're just earning just 500 million, and then we've jumped up to 2 billion. Yes, 2 billion. That means you've gained approximately 1.5 billion in there. Now, in that space of the jump, how much have you also made the jump as you? Because the statistics show that as a whole, something is happening. There's an upward trajectory. So for my fellow Ugandans who are in the Middle East, are you feeling the jump? Did you also make the jump? Or you're still stuck to the same wages that, whichever contractor took you to the Middle East, in your agreement is still paying you 3, 4, 5 years down the road. Yes, it might be money that is big in terms of, in Ugandan standards. Maybe you're gaining $300, $400, $500, I don't know. But then they're showing you there's more coming from that side. You should understand that this time you need to reposition yourself, because you can see that over 80 or 90, or rather 95% of that jump is attributed to gold. That should show you where you should be focusing, that maybe I need to get into the gold industry. How do I get in there? Do I become a miner? How do I get into this industry? Because it seems like that is where the money is. So GDP is just supposed to give us a direction of where we should focus. And if there is a jump, everyone is supposed to make the jump. Yes, I agree so many times this isn't the case, because GDP is going to get an aggregated figure for everyone, which isn't necessarily going to be reflected in everyone's pockets. But that's the best measure we have out there. It's an international index that we have to rely on. And I think it should, for us as Ugandans, we should just look at it as a way to compare ourselves as to where we are, and where, if the country is going up, which directions or which points of the, when you look at the GDP spectrum, which sectors are getting the biggest jumps, such that you position yourself in there, and then you can reap the benefits. That should be how you look at the GDP data per se.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. Thank you very much for that insight as well. Mr. Kisitu, as we try to wind up, try an economist. Can you please also side with Lawrence to explain to the people, just within 1 minute, to explain to the people how the GDP can really benefit an ordinary Ugandan in relation
Thank
to,
you so
can you
much.
relate it to per capita income? Yes.
To all of you, the Ugandans, ebintu byonna ensi byeproducinze munda mu ggwanga n'ebweru waalyo, abali mu ggwanga bannayuganda n'abatali bannayuganda, that is what we call GDP, the gross domestic product, which is defined as the total monetary value arising from all the goods and services produced by nationals and non-nationals, both within and outside the economy over a given period of time, usually 1 year. In relation as I answered the question of Dr. Nurdin, in relation to per capita income, that is the amount of money per head, amount of money that at least everyone has. How do you get per capita income? Total GDP, total money got from all goods and services produced in an economy. You divide it by the total population. Hope I'm trying to be very clear, or hope I'm solving problems now. That's how I always call it. The thing is that people are down there in the village. People in the village down there. Therefore, this person who owns a factory, this person who owns a company somewhere, this person who owns Freedom City, this person who owns Amponye Mall, this person who owns another company somewhere, add up what they are getting. This gentleman who has the license for exporting gold and buying gold in Uganda, only one gentleman who is known by everyone, having money, inviting people in Guru to give them sacks of money, is the only one having their license. Yeah,
yes, Mr. Kisitu, thank you very much.
Is the person who owns a second, is the person whose income is added by my income, which is how much money I have. Let me try to reserve it for statutory reasons. They add it up and they say, Katerega, you have $20 million, and they say, Lawrence, you have $20 million. Sincerely, it is very unfair, and we cannot look at it to measure standards of living. So the figures that my brother Lawrence has read, they are not of Lawrence. They are for President.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It seems like there is a problem with Thank you very much, Mr. Kisitu. I know as a teacher, you have a lot you can. I think that's the reason why Lawrence was saying that the total amount of money, that is the GDP that the country earns, and then you have to position yourself where that money is allocated. I think that was a very good.
Person, by the way, I have customers who want to buy gold. Who can help me sincerely? I've failed, but who can help me, my dear?
We cannot go beyond this time. I know it has been a heating debate right now, and you know, time is always our biggest enemy as we try to discuss a lot of issues. But I always thank you very much, my colleagues that have tried to be always there and spending their time and their money buying data and all that. And finally, let me ask Lawrence to wrap up within 2 minutes and then say bye-bye to our viewers. As I wait, also Mr. Kisitu will come in.
All right. Thank you so much again, Dr. Jericho, and my brother Elias Kisitu for such heartwarming analysis again right there. I welcome the rebuttal, and I think your thoughts are well presented, and I'm sure very many Ugandans share your same sentiment. And if I may just wrap this up, I'll go still back into the two events, which is the two independence celebrations that we've had today. For those who did not get a chance to look at the president's speech, I think you should get time to just go through it and then see the other talking points he had in there and how he presents. I like the way he's trying to reconcile with UPC in there. And the biggest takeaway is the one of the wealth creators and the parasites. So you should look at yourself. Are you the parasite or a wealth creator? Wealth creator doesn't necessarily need to be money. If you're creating knowledge, you're a wealth creator. As much as he dwelt on wealth creators mostly being the cattle keepers and the Bachwezi, I don't know why the Bachwezi discussion keeps coming back over and over again. I think we all studied the Bachwezi and there wasn't so much to say about them, but it looks like it's one of those lingering issues that keeps coming back, and then the president tries to present it as if that's where he comes from and these people come from, and they have come back to reclaim whatever they lost, I think, in the 15th century or so. It is rather very sad that a leader should really try to focus on making himself relevant using some unwritten history that we don't have, and of course he blames that with the fire that happened in Egypt, where we lost the holographic writings that I think it was Alexander the Great who burnt those down. That was also part of his speech, and I'm like, wow, this is interesting. It has even become more comical than I expected. But just leaving that at that, when I look at the president's speech, I think he's also trying to tell a story. The same story that that you see on UNN, other shows that they're trying to do. Everyone is trying to tell a story. Everyone is. Even when you get to other political parties, the BCJs, the Joseph Kabile's former presidential candidate, and all these everyone is trying to build a story. So it is up to us Ugandans to listen to all these stories. This too is a story, or it is part of the story, or at least it explains part of the story if it doesn't tell it. So which one speaks truth to you? Which one is relevant to you? And then you need to make a choice to pick a side where you're going to fall at the end of the day. So for those who are interested in change, pick a side, participate. Some of us have chosen UFCC, others have chosen other ways. Where are you? Take time to look at the information as it is presented, make a choice, and be the change. Be part of the wealth creators, as they say. And if I may borrow another, a key takeaway from the Kabaka speech, which is if if we had a law-abiding leadership, then we would heal all the wounds that our people have suffered in the past. I think I'll just leave it at that. Those are the two. Be a wealth creator. If it's not money, at least do wisdom or intelligence or knowledge. And of course, be a law-abiding citizen. And of course, put the leadership that is relevant. Thank you so much.
We have a voice here. Somebody sent a voice. Let's hear the voice. I don't know whether it's of today. Let's hear the voice.
Dr. Juko, we appreciate your work. I've been listening to those gentlemen, and I really thank very much for their contribution. And I believe whoever listens to UNN TV is likely to get some sense out of them. I like the way Lawrence discusses his issues, and I really commend his work. I commend also Mr. Gendo's work and the rest.
I think,
right on the point.
I think that was an old message. Sorry for that. Let's have Mr. Kisi to wind up in 2 minutes, and then we get out of here and say bye-bye to the
thank
viewers.
You so much, Doctor. Indeed, I could say, if I'm to describe, you deserve to be declared the Olympic gold medal winner. That is Dr. Katerega. I will go tomorrow. To all of us, the only way to go, let us embrace UFCC, and we happen to learn a lot of things. We happen to share ideas of how we can change the lot of messes in the country. Still, to the viewers, we had the Batu's dynasty. After the collapse of Batu's dynasty, we go to the intercastrian regions where Buganda, Busoga, Bunyoro, and Kore members of that, and those are the ones that we have currently. There are 4. That is what Mr. Batu's, that is why everyone talks about the Batu's. The Kabakas, we should all have the sense of humanity, like how Kabaka stressed it clearly. We should also try as much as we can. We read the books, all of us, even the viewers, such that we understand the history of our country. Because in the fight where we shall go, we shall need all that knowledge. I'm so happy that I'm here. And again, I promise to always provide the best, make research, come here, present wonderful ideas. I thank so much my brother Lawrence. Lawrence, thank you so much. But please, the moderator, as I conclude, and Mr. Lawrence, as per the GDP, they are saying that gold earns a lot. Can anyone please help me, connect me to those ones? I've got customers who need gold. Connect me to those ones. I call them, I go there, such that we can engage in the business of gold. I want to move in where gold is mined, but everything is in. I rest my case. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Kisitu, for your time. As usual, it is always treasured here at UNN and the Tower in particular. What I should people know that politicians are hogging the limelight as they rebrand to rhyme the music, the political music. If you look at all this that politicians are doing, I personally don't believe that this is what we need to be our destination in terms of political mileage. We need to rebrand ourselves to a direction where we are destined to obtain our liberty and independence as Uganda. Uganda needs to be liberated again. It needs to be rejuvenated. It needs to be rebranded. It needs to be established. And Ugandans feel really happy within their country. There is no way politics will gonna help us regain our country. The only way is to have a question to all the 16 or 15 states or nations that make Uganda, what way they want to go, how do they want to be ruled, and how do they share the cake or the national cake proportionally in relation to their population, in relation to their production as a state, and how do we reconcile all those together within Uganda? That is a unity in diversity. This is the rebranding that we need. We know rebranding for positions. We know rebranding for just taking position because of somebody is taking the other direction. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot go beyond this. We just call upon you to participate in UFCC so that we have a way forward. That is the way. Federal is the only way we can go to make Uganda for everyone who is indigenous and those that come to participate in it fairly, without favor or without discrimination. I thank you very much for all your time. I thank our producer who has done everything to make us, go on air. And I thank whoever behind all the helping us to move on. Thank you very much. I can't forget to thank our viewers. As you know, we have other shows that are coming on this evening as Principal comes up for another production. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day. Have a blessed week. And God bless you and God bless Uganda. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.